The Lamb by William Blake. The Lamb is one of Blake's most celebrated poems from his 1789 collection Songs of Innocence. The Lamb certainly approaches the subject of creativity and creator like. Well, on the surface, Blake's narrator seems to be speaking of the life of a real physical lamb. In the end, we realize he is layering meaning with subject derived from both Christian and classical mythology. The lamb is also a symbol of Jesus Christ, both as a child and as a physical incarnation of the deity. The child is both a creation of God and a lamb, one of God's flock. Blake begins with a simple image and approaches it from differing angles to give us a better understanding of his visual nature of divine creation, his vision of nature of divine creation. Okay. Welcome to my YouTube channel Bachelor and Master English. Today, as you have already heard, we are talking about The Lamb by William Blake. It is from Songs of Innocence by Blake, published in 1789. In our today's discussion, we shall be introducing the poem itself, as I have already discussed some part of introduction. There will be paraphrase of the poem, summary of the poem will be given, but here will be no Nepali discussion today. There will be critical appreciation and what is the design and how it is structured, that will be discussed later, and there will be literary devices used by Blake in this lyrical poem. Finally, the discussion will be wrapped up with reader's response. I am sure you will accompany me till the end of this video. If you are new to my channel, or if you have been watching the channel without being a subscribed member, I request you heartily, please subscribe my channel and be the regular viewer of my further videos. I am working a lot. I have been working for discussing different pieces of literature from the parts of the world that are available in English. So far as possible, my devotion and my dedication is to create a room for good learning, good interpretation, good analysis, and good discussion of the pieces of literature that are available in English language. So far as possible, I am trying my level best to give the quality, not the quantity. I am not focusing on the quantity, my focus is on the quality, how pieces of literature can be approached, how they can be discussed, how students can have the perception to be prepared for their future. Okay. So, that is the vision, that is the mission, and that is my aim, what I am willing to, and I am sure you will support me, and you will recommend your friends to become the member of or subscriber of this YouTube channel Bachelor and Master English. Okay. Here is The Lamb at a Glance. So, this title is The Lamb by William Blake. Here is the poet. The genre is lyric. The period of the poetry is the early romanticism, but pure romantic elements are there. Contents of romanticism, the characteristic features of romanticism, all the tenets of romanticism can be traced in the poetry of William Blake and these Songs of Innocence. Oh, sure. And the theme of the poem is Christianity, that is religion, love, innocence, creation, mortality, emotions, and childhood. Okay. That is the part of the Lamb's view, overview, let us say. Introduction. Here is The Lamb is one of the 1789 collection of Songs of Innocence by William Blake, who was born in 1757 and passed away in 1827. It is the most celebrated poems in the collection, that is Songs of Innocence. His collection entitled Songs of Innocence, an experience subtitled showing the contrary states of human soul, was published as a set of engraved plates between 1789 and 1794. Many of the Innocence poems have a counterpart in the experience set, and the Lamb is one of these, being matched with much better known the tiger. We made the discussion of tiger in our earlier video, so you can have the view over there and discussion from that point. Here I am talking about lamb. The lamb deals with the origin of the victims of evil. In calling himself by the name of the Lamb, Christ claimed kinship with the suffering victim and promised by his act of self-sacrifice to banish from tiger and lamb. Okay, here is the paraphrase of the poem. Okay, let us go with the summary. Very short summary here. The poem, the Lamb, is very beautiful poem and very lyrical and very simple poem. The poet addresses the lamb itself using apostrophe here. Little lamb, who made thee? As if it understands him. Lamb is pure, innocent, and it is associated with Christ. The speaker, as a child, asks the lamb about its origins, how it came into being, how it acquired its particular manner of feeding, its clothing of wool, its tender voice. In the next stanza, the speaker attempts a riddling answer to his own rhetorical question. In the first stanza, the lamb was made by one who calls himself a lamb, one who resembles in his gentleness both the child and the lamb. The child enjoys the company of the lamb, who is analogous to the child. The poem ends up with the child bestowing a blessing on the lamb. The poem displays the innocence, the joy, and affection. That's the summary of the poem. Now, here we go with critical appreciation. The Lamb by William Blake is regarded as one of the great lyrics of English literature. It is one of the simplest poems of William Blake, both as regards the subject and the style. In the form of a dialogue between the child and the lamb, although the child does not get the response from the lamb itself, but here he is addressing the lamb in the form of apostrophe, that is the literary device used by the poet himself here. The poem is an amalgam, the mixture, the fusion of the Christian script and pastoral traditions. So, this is the fusion, the blending of this pastoralism and Christianity. It is a part of that early 19th century poetry, early 19th century literature. That is the dawn of romantic period in English literature, especially here. The lamb is universal symbol of selfish innocence. Jesus the lamb is the general imagination. The divine humanity, the lamb identifies with Christ to form a trinity of child, lamb, and redeemer. The poem presents the ideal of charity, substantiating Christian compassion and caritas or caring, the ideals of the Lamb of God. William Blake writes about love, innocence, creation, emotions, and childhood. In this poem, The Lamb, we can hint three romantic features, which are nature, simplicity, and transcendentalism. I also talked about this part of early 19th century poetry and features. Yeah, and here is what Blake wrote about. He employed all these things: nature, simplicity, and transcendentalism, that is beyond the human concept, that goes beyond humanity and human nature. So, in romantic literature, these characteristics of his writing make Blake be considered one of the pioneers of romantic literature. Exploring different themes of religion, innocence and morality, Blake might be trying to tell us that the Lamb or Christ should be a source of celebration for all who sees or hear him. Its innocence is one of the most important feature. All people should strive for the image of the Lamb. However, the Christian connotation also contain implications of sacrifice, death and tragedy. Christ, the human sacrifice, who look upon himself the signs of the world. The poem evokes feelings of tenderness because of its innocence and holiness. What a wonderfully simple poem, with the first stanza concentrating on the Lamb itself and the second stanza focusing the Lamb as a symbol of Jesus Christ. A piece of literature truly belonging in Blake's Songs of Innocence. Lamb is pure, innocent, and it is associated with the Christ. Being a visionary, Blake invites the reader to world free from reasoning. He describes the Lamb as he sees it. The Lamb has been blessed with life and with capacity to drink from the stream and feed from the meadow. The Lamb is a poem that was written by William Blake. Throughout this lyrical poem, Blake explores themes of religion, innocence and morality. He expresses his appreciation for God and what he represents. The poem actually centers on Christianity, having the Lamb as a symbol of Jesus and the Lamb of God. The main idea here is a child who talks to a lamb about who created them. William Blake phrases for specific qualities of Jesus Christ and his gifts to humanity. Okay, let us look at the poem in its critical appreciation here, and these points, one of the simplest poems of Blake. Throughout the two stanza, what the poet is trying to tell, and what's the spirit of childhood and the image of Christ, and using a pastoral note, and this Lamb is a warm and curious poem, and relating to God's nature. Okay, the first point here is one of the simplest poems that this Lamb is written here in regards to its subject and style, but it is it has that significant position in Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, as these two are contrary states of human soul, and he embodied both these two in two contrary parts of the poem. One collection called Songs of Innocence, another collection called Songs of Experience, and the symbolic in Songs of Experience is tiger, Songs of Innocence there is lamb. So, this can the lamb live together with tiger? One has to become the victim, another is the predator. Here the tiger feeds upon the lion, feeds upon the lamb, and lamb becomes the victim of tiger's ferociousness and this preying nature. That is the tragedy, that is the fate. And here lamb and tiger, one represents innocence, another represents experience. So, here in the second stanza we can find what kind of creature lamb is and how he is related to Jesus. In the first stanza, child who is supposed to be speaking to the lamb gives a brief description of the little animal as he sees it. The lamb has been blessed with life and with the capacity to feed by the stream and over the meadow. It has been endowed with bright and soft wool, which serves as its clothing. It has a tender voice which fills the valley with joy. We have here a true portrait of a lamb in the first stanza. And here the spirit of childhood and the image of Christ. In the second stanza, there is an identification of the lamb, Christ, and the child. Christ has another name, that is lamb, because Christ is meek and mild like a lamb. Christ was also a child when he first appeared on this earth as the Son of God. Hence, the appropriateness of the following lines. He became a little child, he became a little child, I a child, and thou a lamb were called by his name. The child in this poem speaks to the lamb as if the lamb were another child and could respond to what is being said. The child shows his deep joy in the company of the lamb who is just like him, meek and mild. The poem conveys the very spirit of childhood, the purity, the innocence, the tenderness of childhood, and the affection that a child feels for little creatures. A religious note is introduced in the poem because of the image of Christ as a child. Both the child and the lamb have got the same name as Christ has. They all share the same qualities, meekness and mildness and innocence. The lamb, the child, and the Christ are identified in this poem. Christ is known as the lamb. Christ praised children for their innocence of such is the kingdom of God, and Christ had the qualities of meekness and mildness which both a lamb and a child possess. Christ was an incarnation of love and tenderness. And the poem is rich in its pastoral note. It is a pastoral poem. It is perfectly, it perfectly harmonizes with the pastoral note of the introduction to the Songs of Innocence. The pastoral note in black is another symbol of innocence and joy. That's the thing, innocence and joy, how they are related. The lamb begins with the speaker wondering who created lamb. The tone in each of the poem to its stanza is tender, relayed in a little sing-song manner with rhymed short phrases and an assonance based in soft-sounding words containing the letter la, little lamb, life, delight, woolly, I will tell, bless. The oral rhetorical effects suggest a sweet, plaintive, childlike voice at the speaker, a sound similar to the tender bawling of a lamb, bleating of the lamb. The first stanza continues the question about who made the lamb by noting the creature's characteristics. It feeds by the stream and over the mead. It has a soft covering, clothing of delight, softness clothing, woolly bright, and it has a tender voice, making all the bells rejoice. The stanza ends by repeating the opening question. This opening question is, little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? The second stanza answers the questions posed in the first stanza. A benevolent God, represented by Jesus Christ, who has been called the Lamb of God. He is called by thy name. The poem notes and whose own meekness is lamb-like, for he calls himself lamb, is responsible for the lamb. The poem later introduces the speaker as a child, uniting the three beings, that is Trinity here. Jesus, He is meek and he is mild. He became a little child. The speaker, I a child, and the beast, thou a lamb. And noting that all three beings are meek and lamb like or mild, we are called by his name. The poem ends with the child speaker blessing the lamb, repeating twice for a tender and loving effect. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. The much more intense and poetic voice in the tiger, on the other hand, is rendered through brief blunt lines and a series of ominous questions, culminating in penultimate stanza, where the voice dares to wonder, did he who made the lamb make thee? The chanting tone of the poem contrasts with the gentle one of the lamb. Just as the child and the lamb are symbol of innocence, the tiger is one of ferocity. Okay. The lamb is warm and curious poem that uses the lamb as a symbol for Christ, innocence and nature of God's creation. Throughout two stanzas of the poem, the poet speaks up to the lamb, asking it if it knows who was responsible for creating it. He goes into vague detail about Christ, his nature, while using repetition to emphasize these features. So, the poem is one of the simplest poems here in the field of teaching, and that is prescribed in the courses here. The pastoral note, the spirit of childhood, and the image of Christ, all these are embodied here in the poem, and the structure of the poem here. The Lamb is a lyrical poem. It consists of two 10-line stanzas which pose a question and give it answer. Each stanza has 5 pair of rhyming couplets where the end word one line rhymes with the next. Most lines have 7 syllables except for the first and last couples of each stanza, which have only 6 syllables. The structure of each stanza consists of a theme, that is 2 lines, its exposition 6 lines, and a coda, that is conclusion. Technically, it is a trump up form, but one hardly notices such. It is the childish beauty of the symbol and the deep religious feeling which pulses through it. At first glance, this poem appears to consist of rhyming couplets, and the first and the last couplet in the first stanza could be said to exhibit identical rhyme. However, the rhyme is an exact repeat of the 3 last words or phrase, who made thee, and the last couplet is a repetition of the first verbatim. The effect is that of a refrain in a song. Such is a lullaby in this Song of Innocence. The speaker is even a child. It is interesting to note that the final word of the 3rd and 4th lines, the first couplet in the body of the text, feed, mid, rhyme identically with the final word of the first 2 lines, creating a smooth transition. The body of the first stanza follows the rhyming scheme A, B, B, C, C. Feed, mid, delight, ride, voice, rejoice. The body of the second follows the rhyming scheme A, B, C, C, B, A. Name, lamb, mild child, lamb name. A pattern found in the Bible and a kernel of a larger Hebraic technique or device. An exact repeat of the entire line is employed in the second stanza's first and last couplets. The first two lines and then the last two different lines with the A, B, C, C, B, A scheme in the body. The whole is indeed effective. One might even say innocent with perfect truth. In the first stanza, the speaker, a child, asks the lamb who its creator is. Who its creator is, and if it knows who, the child knows and tells the lamb the answer in the second stanza. Now, let us look at line by line explanation of the poem. Now, we have explanation for the first two lines 1 and 2. One of the most famous poems in Blake's collection Songs of Innocence, the lamb establishes its theme quickly in the first two lines as mentioned earlier. When the narrator asks the lamb if it knows who created it, it is not calling attention to the biological parents. The narrator specifically asks about the nature of creation in the divine sense. The narrator does not think the creator is what but a home, and this home has the power to actually create life. So, there is personification of the lamb in this part of the poem. Lines 3 and 4. The narrator implies much more than creating and drinking and the home of this little lamb with these two lines. The fact that the gift of life is connected to the command to live by natural instinctual means hints at the nature of divine law. These lines suggest that life, the natural life of a lamb, is a divine creation. The landscape reinforces the natural over the urban. The fact that Blake fails to mention any kind of restraint upon the lamb may also be significant in this part of poem. Now, let us go with lines 5 and 6. These two lines begin to suggest a second layer of meaning patterning to the image of the lamb. They recall the swirling clothes of the baby Jesus and of his hair that was purported to be like a lamb's wool. The brightness of the lamb and the brightness of Christ comes from within and also demonstrates their ability to reflect light. The whitest lamb reflects the most light. Lines 7 and 8. Interpretation of lines 7 and 8. The reference to the lamb's voice suggests a double meaning here. Of course, the bleating of lambs sounds very tender, lovely, but Blake refers also to the voice of Christ. The words and the speech of Christ are often thought to be as tender, lovely, like bleating of the lamb, because they acclaim love and rejoice in life itself. The bells also have an additional meaning. Bells are valleys, and so here the narrator once again asks us to think about the concept of landscape surrounding and how we are influenced by them. Okay, lines 9 and 10. With this new repetition, we have a new perspective on the lamb. This repetition emphasizes the largest, the grandeur of creativity. Specifically, we are called upon to contemplate the creation of both a biological lamb and a figurative lamb. We are asked to consider their relationship to each other and to the divine. Now, The first stanza is over, and we are coming to second stanza, lines 11 and 12. Only now does Blake introduce his narrator in the form of I. We can guess that this I could be Blake, but actually for general interpretation he could be a speaker here, but we sense this I could be Blake, or we could suppose that it is a piper represented in Introduction to Songs of Innocence. The identity is probably not as important as the idea that this person seems to understand at the same level the nature of creation, and is enthusiastic to share with the lamb and with the reader what he or she knows. The repetition hints once again at the double subtle nature of the lamb as a concept. Now, lines 13 and 14. Now, the speaker brings the double definition of the lamb into a more obvious light. There can be no mistake that not only does the narrator refer to a biological lamb, but he also refers to Jesus Christ in the image of the lamb. Since he is writing about the nature of creation itself, then we can begin to draw conclusions about what Blake believes to be. Then we can begin to draw conclusions and true about the spiritual as well as the mundane. Why does Blake use the word call twice? Perhaps it is to illustrate the idea of being called into service of the divine. Since this is a poem about creation, perhaps Blake hints that to be called to creativity is divine. This is a theme that is seen again and again in Blake's poetry. Now, let us go with lines 15 and 16. These two lines give reference to Christ's message that the meek shall inherit the world, and the concept that gentleness and love is the ideal way of behaving in the world. Blake's narrator also links the behavior of the divine to the behavior of a little lamb. Then he makes further connection to the idea that the creator and the little child are one and the same. We also can guess that Blake sees creativity as a childlike occupation. Furthermore, the fact that the divine decided to actually come into the world, and any child would give us an understanding of our own nature. Lines 17 and 18. Blake has fun with the language in these two lines. The mystical relationship between I and thou has often been the very definition of God. The equivalent value of the child and the lamb suggests a divine connection and comparison between the human being and the divine, and the higher consciousness and lower unconsciousness. Remember, the psychology as we understand it in the 20th century did not exist in Blake's period. It was early 19th century. This concept of dual consciousness may have surprised Blake's readership. The fact that he emphasizes the idea with the second of the two lines can only serve to tell the reader that there has been no mistake in interpreting the connection. Both human child and animal child have an equal relationship to the divine in both name and quality. The final couplet concluding couplet means lines 19 and 20. The repetition has the repetition here serves to complete this concept with a blessing. The narrator revelation is now fully revealed. He blesses the Lamb himself and the Christ with enthusiasm. Says, little lamb, God bless thee, little lamb, God bless thee. These two lines here, and in the first couplet we have, little lion, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? So this first line, first two lines, and this again here he has two lines, little lamb I will tell thee, little lamb I will tell thee. He was ensuring that the revelation will be made easier. Finally, it is Christ, none other than the Christ, the benevolent God. And this symbolic of gentleness, meekness, mildness. Okay. And let us talk with the literary devices used in the poem. The poem is very simple. Within this simplicity, the poet has used a lot of literary devices to make it simple and very influencing for the discussion. The first stanza of the Lamb is rich with imagery. The reader can picture the delightful little by the stream and o'er the mead, with sun shining on its soft woolly bright. For lines 4 and 6. Blake uses apostrophe and repetition in the Lamb. Apostrophe is first apparent in the very first line of the poem, little lamb, who made thee? The entire poem addresses the lamb and asks him, although it is incapable of responding. The phrase is here, dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I will tell thee, little lamb, I will tell thee. God bless thee, little lamb, God bless thee, are each repeated twice. The Lamb in the Lamb poem by William Blake. Blake has used personification, another literary device, to embody this lamb with human qualities. You can we can just also say mystification. He is also attributing mystic character of Jesus Christ. We can also say mystification here. But first of all, I a child and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. So he also associates himself with lamb and both of them with God. That is, little lamb, God bless thee. So his name means here H capital or H in uppercase, that his refers to Jesus Christ. If your name and my name, if you and I are both embodied with divine quality, we are not a mundane being. You are not the lamb, I am not the man, I am not the child, and you are not the lamb. We are Jesus, we are God, we have such quality or such embodiment of God, such revelation is made here. That is personification. The tone of the poem is joyous and peaceful. Blake accomplishes this by using positive imagery and words such as delight and rejoice. The lamb can also be seen as childish and innocent. Like its contrary poem, The Tiger, Blake uses rhetorical questions in this poem, The Lamb. Little lamb, who made thee? Although obscured by soft positive words, Blake is addressing a very serious question which embodies answer in itself. Who created God, the innocent lamb? He then concludes that God built such a creature and therefore created goodness on earth. The lamb focuses on God's positive creation, whereas the tiger questions the creator's ability to form evil as well. Tiger and the lamb, these are two contrary states of human soul. These are two contrary animals on the world, one preys upon another. Okay. Now here we go with the significance of this poem. Why we study this poem? What is the significance of studying this poem here? This particular significance of this poem lies in the fact that it is a counterpart to another poem, The Tiger of the Songs of Experience. In other words, the lamb and the tiger represent the two contrary states of the human soul. The opposition between these two poems is most pointed and striking. The lamb represents the innocence and the humility of man. The tiger represents the violent and terrifying forces within man. Taken together, the lamb and the tiger represent the duality of human nature. God has created good in the form of a lamb on earth. The tiger from the Songs of Experience and the lamb from the Songs of Innocence deal with the victims of evil. In calling himself by the name of the lamb, Christ claimed kinship with the suffering victim and promised by his act of self-sacrifice to banish both tiger and lamb. Okay, that's all with the discussion of The Lamb by William Blake. It has been a long discussion here of about 42 minutes, but I am sure for the students of bachelor and master level this sort of length does not matter, because discussion is the focal point. What is important is how different layers, different areas, different angles or different viewpoints go with the discussion or interpretation. That is why I am sure you enjoyed it. I am sure you accompanied me till now. Thank you very much for your time and patience.